Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special meeting of the Delhi Township Board of Trustees. We'll begin tonight, as we always do, with a Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight is our annual budget presentation, so following the Pledge of Allegiance, we'll begin with budget presentations. Pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I don't know how you came up with this order, but we'll follow right down the agenda. First, we have Parks Department Director Josh Torbeck.
Before Mr. Torbeck starts with his
You're not on my agenda.
information.
It's gonna be one of those nights.
Okay. This was really good stuff.
Yes, Mr.
I was
Cameron?
going to set the stage just a little bit.
Okay.
So what we have this evening is a meeting for you to get together and hear what the proposal is for your 2020 appropriations. On December 18th, you would have the actual resolution approving or hoping to approve appropriations for 2020, which then establishes how much can be spent in each fund and each line of each fund. So this is your chance to have that dialogue and go back and forth. So between tonight's meeting and the 18th, we'll make whatever revisions we need to based on the discussion tonight, if there's any corrections or then decisions made about different things. One thing I did, for the sake of not everyone is familiar with our accounting procedures, I thought it might be useful to talk about some of the numbers because most people are used to their home budget. You know, you have this much come in, you can only put this much out. Our numbers don't always translate the same. What you have and what you approve as a board are appropriations. So we call it a budget, but it's actually considered appropriations, how much you appropriate to be used in each fund. In each fund is the police levy, the park levy, the general fund, the road and bridge. So you have different funds, so each one is accounted for in and of itself. But people might talk about your overall budget, and so things get confused when you talk about appropriations versus budget versus expenses. So we have what are final expenses as well. So it's hard to say that until the year ends, but the appropriations are how much can be expended and not more than that amount. Okay, one other clarification. Certificate of Estimated Resources is an exercise that happens at the county level. In July, you pass a tax budget, which is called a tax budget. That's forwarded down to the county, the Budget Commission, which includes the county auditor, treasurer, and prosecutor. Now, I'm sure they have their staff work on this and give them the things they need, but it's our document to them that they review and confirm these are the resources you have available to appropriate against for 2020. So what you'll see in each person's comparison is an actual appropriated amount and the Certificate of Estimated Resources. So the certificate is the amount in each fund they can't go beyond budgeting against or trying to spend against their appropriations. Just quickly highlighting what the overall number is. So the overall appropriation request you have in your binders, so your binders detail these things, is $22,405,000. The request last year at this time for 2019 was $22,219,000, and I put these two numbers because with the $3 million purchase, things are inflated a little bit for comparison's sake. So your actual appropriated amount today for 2019 is $26,119,000. You're at revenue versus estimated resources. Total revenue for 2019 is $22,687,000. Your certificate of estimated resources for 2019 was $35,384,000. So there's quite a difference between what you have to spend against and what the revenues are, because there's carryovers and some other things. For 2020, those same numbers are 21 million is the estimated revenues new for next year. That's conservative. 2019's obviously what we collected, so it's more than what it will be. And 35,976 is your certificate. Briefly, I talked about appropriations versus expenses. Because of the way we have to appropriate and fund accounting, when we transfer money from one fund to another, like the general fund supports the zoning fund in that operation because they don't bring in enough revenue and they don't have a levy. So that amount we transfer is counted in the appropriations of the general fund. It's also counted in the appropriations of the zoning fund. So we have inflated appropriations versus our expenses. That's one thing I think people probably don't realize. So our actual expenses in 2018, because 19's not closed and I can't give you the exact numbers, was 18,986,000 versus the actual final appropriated number of 20,469,000. The same you can see the same $1.5 million difference in 2017. So just to highlight, when people look at our numbers, they need to realize appropriations aren't necessarily the expenses, and we have other certificate of estimated resources we have to deal with. So just kind of helping people if they watch this and try and digest our numbers. It's fund accounting, it's not cash accounting like they're probably used to doing on their own monthly budget.
And this is the first pass at it, and there'll be changes, alterations, and so forth during this meeting as well as probably following the meeting as we discuss things further.
A lot of places do a temporary appropriation to get through March because they want to see how the year shakes out. Your funds are healthy enough that you don't really need to do that exercise, so you like to pass the permanent for January 1st. But then we do make adjustments throughout the year just based on spending, and as Ms. Hermes will explain a little bit with the self-insurance that had to happen there, it's just the nature of the beast. So things do move, but this is very good. This really does show you what's happening, and each department head has been asked to highlight what they're doing in their department and not go through line by line. Are there any big decisions you need to be aware of? Otherwise, you know what their operation is, you know what their personnel look like, you know what different costs look like. So this is really to give them a chance to highlight a few things.
Okay, so on December the 18th, are we going to be able to approve a final budget effective January 1, or do you want us to wait until January?
No, please pass something December 18th.
December 18th,
Because otherwise
right,
you can't
that's
operate.
Okay, that's what we want to hear. So that version of the budget would then be posted.
Yes, we will post the draft appropriation resolution number prior to that meeting.
Okay. Any other questions, you guys?
No.
Good, thank you.
All right. Are we good to start with Mr. Torbeck then?
Are you ready?
Yes, thank you for setting that all up.
He's ready.
I'm going to just briefly talk about 2019. Our appropriations, or what our expenses will be well below what we thought as far as appropriations, and we brought in a little bit more revenue than we anticipated. So as far as 2019, when it was a healthy year for us, we didn't have any unexpected expenses that really threw us off. So everything was pretty consistent. So all in all, it was a good year. Everything kind of fell where we thought it was going to fall, which is a good thing. So looking forward to 2020, you'll see that the appropriation final line item is going up a little bit, and I'll discuss that a little bit farther down when I go line by line as to why it's gone up a little bit more. But I'll get to that at the end. As far as the line items, I only have a couple that I want to discuss because for the most part they remain almost consistent throughout the whole entire thing. So if there's a line item that I skip over that you would like to ask a question about, please feel free to interrupt and and let me know what that is. The first one I want to talk about is repairs and maintenance to the senior center, 3230600. You'll see a pretty big.
12.
I'm sorry, what?
It's up 12, she said.
It's up to.
Yes, it's up 12. Yes. So the reason it's up 12 is we plan on replacing the parking lot lights with LED parking lot lights. The highest number is $12,000 for those parking lot lights. The quotes that we have coming in are a little bit below that. Plus, there's an opportunity for some grants to do like a 50% match. So the number we spend at the end of the day could be well less than that 12,000, but I'm budgeting 12,000 as the max scenario. So that would be the increase of $12,000 in that line item. We actually had an energy audit done of the senior center, and one of the things that came back was replacing the parking lot lights with LEDs. And if we do that, the cost saving would repay what we spent on the lights within a couple of years. So it makes sense to go ahead and do it, especially if there's opportunity to get some of that money back. The next line item is the very next one, 329, property services. We increased that by quite a bit as well, about $8,000. Property services is the line item we use for tree removal. And we're getting to the point, everybody's heard of emerald ash borer. Yes, we've been stricken with that, our ash trees, but just because they're infested doesn't mean they die. Well, we're getting to the point where a lot of our bigger trees need to be taken down. We can do some of the smaller ones in-house with our crew. We have a great crew, but some of the larger ones that may be around structures or electrical lines, we need to contract that out. We just don't have the equipment to do it. So that increase is to account for more tree removal, so just to keep the park safe, to keep our structures sound. It's just a time where we have to take down a little bit more trees. The next line item is 4200600, operating supplies at the senior center. You see an increase there. The same energy audit we had done at the senior center looked at some of our interior lighting and our lighting along the walkway on the outside. Again, they recommend replacing those with LEDs. A couple years ago, we replaced all the sconces and all the light bulbs that we could. This is actually replacing fixtures to make them capable of handling LEDs. These also have a possible rebate and some funding possibility too. So the extra $4,200 we put in there for lighting, that is the max amount we could spend. At the end of the day, it could be half that or a third of that based on rebates and possible funding. So we put the full amount in there, but it's likely that it'll probably be less than that at the end of the day. The next line item, small tools and minor equipment, that went up a couple $1,000s. The big ticket item would be a new water fountain out at Story Woods. I'm sure if you've been out there this past year, we've tried to kind of piecemeal it together to make it work, but it's gotten to the point where we need a new water fountain. They're expensive. The outdoor water fountains range in that $3,500 to $4,000 range. So that is to replace the water fountain out at Story Woods Park. And then before I move to the very last item that I want to talk about, are there any questions about any other line items before I get into the weeds?
I think I agreed with you on every question, so I'm good.
So improvement of sites, is that the weeds you're getting into?
Yes.
That's next. That's the big plus.
So if there's no questions about anything else, sure.
Clarification up on the, and I know some of this isn't within your control and things, but when you're talking about the medical hospitalization on 18 for 54,000, but you're looking at 19 to 72,000, is there something else which is the 70,000? What are we looking at there? Something?
There's been a slight increase in our insurance, but mostly for us, it's one of our employees who was on a single plan, got married, and then I just budgeted a family just in case that were to happen. So you see an increase from single to family for one of our full-time employees.
Yeah, just curious.
Yep. So line item 730000 is improvement of sites. What this is for is, obviously this year we had to close down the splash pad. The reason being is the plumbing, the electrical, the infrastructure underneath the pad itself, everything was going wrong. And in order to repair was to completely rip everything out, which wasn't really feasible. So we looked at what are our possibilities for putting something in place that would benefit the community the most, and that's where this line item comes in place. We compared a splash pad and a playground, the same installation cost, and how they would benefit the community. So if you look at the slide, two of the big things we looked at were potential users. Because the playground's year-round, and the size of the playground we can put in for the same installation cost, you're looking about serving 175,000 people compared to 40,000 people. So for us, that was a big thing, important item we wanted to be able to facilitate, having more people come in to use, our amenities. And also a more diverse group of people offering different items or play items that I'll get into that can serve more of the community, just not, a handful. The second line item, or the second item you see on there is a 10-year cost. We wanted to do, whatever we put in there, we wanted it to be sustainable, something where in 5 or 10 years, we're not looking for another levy or a way to, pay for something or have something closed down because it's too expensive to operate. So if you look at the 10-year cost of a playground or play structure versus a splash pad, you see a $270,000 for installation and maintenance over the course of 10 years compared to $750,000 for install and maintenance for 10 years. And that includes water for splash pad as well. So the cost to the community, it kind of spoke for itself of what would be more fiscally responsible, but also what would accommodate more of the community and for a longer period of time through the season. So to kind of highlight some items of the playground, we wanted to really get the most bang for our buck. We wanted items that were tall and attractive, things that could accommodate the most amount of kids and the most amount of age ranges, not just 5 to 12 or 10-year-olds, but we wanted to accommodate kids in that 2 to 5 year range. We wanted to make sure that it was ADA accessible, so for those in our community that do have children that may not be able to play on our playgrounds because the surface doesn't allow it, this is a playground that would allow it. And we'll talk about a little bit more features for some of the younger kids and stuff. But the first one is this tower. It's about 30 feet tall, and at the highest point of the park, if you climb to the top, you could see the majority of the park. It's also something that could be seen from Foley Road. So it's something that would stand out, something that would be an eye-catching for the community. The next one is this rope maze, also a very large structure that can accommodate a lot of kids. It also has features on the ground, so if you can't necessarily climb or you're not old enough to climb, there's still things at the ground level that they're able to do and to play with. So we really wanted to carry that theme of accommodating a lot of kids, but also having multiple different ways for kids to explore and play with it. The next slide, you'll see what are these tunnels and hills that will be kind of in the negative space of the playground. These are just kind of fun ways to fill up those areas between the playgrounds where kids can explore and kind of climb and make their own fun. And if you've seen them anywhere else, kids are all over these little features because they can slide down it, they can climb, and it's really for kids of any age. And then the last slide is more for the younger group and also for kids who, like I said, may have accessibility issues. They have features where they don't have to climb or climb steps. These are features are right there at the ground level for them. There's also some sensory components for kids that may not have something else in the neighborhood or the community or even outside of our community for them to play with. So we really wanted to focus on being as inclusive as possible with everybody in the community. So that line item is $75,000 out of the park department. This total project is $250,000. We have another small grant that would make it about $100,000 of the $250,000 funding. I also presented for another grant for an additional $150,000 to make the project whole at $250,000. The request for me from the board is even if we do get that full amount of $150,000, it's still a reimbursement grant, so we'd still have to pay the $250,000 and then we get reimbursed that $150,000. But there's no guarantee we'll get that $150,000. We may get $100,000 or $50,000 or $0. So without having that answer today, my request would be from the board is to make that project whole and request $150,000. And then as we find out more about the grant, we can figure out how it works from there. But that would make the project whole. You could always ask, you could always give more, and we could do a bigger project, but that's where we stand, is that $75,000 line item is coming out of the operational budget of the Parks Department. And that's something, if we go with the playground, I feel is feasible, because the money we're saving on the expense of water from previous splash pads is something that I can accommodate, where I couldn't if we went with something else that had the use of water.
Okay. Questions, Trustee Davis?
Have you looked at the other parks in the area, like Ebshoff and these? Do they have anything similar to these at all?
Yes. So nothing like this. As far as the surfacing, to have a playground of this size and this many amenities, you're looking to travel either downtown to Green Township or Blue Ash to find something similar to these amenities. You might find playgrounds similar in size but not the surfacing to be ADA compliant, or playgrounds that are ADA compliant but not this size. So it kind of hits on the need of the community, but it's also going to serve children or families outside the community that may not have a closer option.
Trustee Sturts?
And so the money that you're asking us will come out of the general fund? Is that what you're asking?
General fund or TIF.
Okay. Just want to make sure we understood where it was
And
going.
it would be reimbursed,
Right.
depending on how much we got from the grant, obviously that'd be reimbursed to either the general fund or the TIF, whatever the money came out of.
On the playground, I had the opportunity to see Josh's presentation for the capital budget, and that's where we're hoping we get the biggest amount to help finance this. But his points that he made to the capital budget group were pretty poignant, because this park, first off, it connects to our new development site on Delhi Pike. It's right across the street. It answers the need for our younger children to have a playground. And within the, I'm going to call it children community, the big thing now is sensory and mental relaxation and alertness and away from a device. I know that the school district here has actually called Josh as a reference on what to do with some of the playgrounds that they've built. So he has really researched a lot of the playgrounds in the area and actually advised on building some of those playgrounds as well. It's a tough decision to eliminate one thing that's been there for a long time, but it has aged out. It has aged out beyond just a simple repair. And this gives more children an opportunity for more months out of the year. And I know we'll do what we can on our side to help you finance this, but congratulations on looking for other ways, for other sources of revenue to get it done. So, anything else?
No, totally agree.
I have a quick question. Since this is a reimbursement out of the TIF or the general fund, have we put that difference in either one of those funds yet? Included that?
I don't think so.
No, I think until we know if we have money from the capital.
So do you think this is an
State capital
adjustment
fund.
we'll make in 2020
Yeah,
then?
I
Okay.
wouldn't take a step, because they may give you the full request, they may give you less. I think the first thing we wanted to make sure is you see the value of the playground, that like we do, and then including the amount Josh can absorb in his fund, and then we'd have to see what we get from the capital budget and decide, okay, here's exactly what it looks like. And I'm looking, I mean, you could program it out of the park fund and show it as revenue in too. I mean, wherever you do, you're gonna
wherever we
count
get
it
it.
as revenue.
Right.
So it's a wash at the end of the day.
Okay.
And my expectations are we'd hear something before the new year. So I don't think it's something that will be delayed till 2020.
Can I ask one other question? Is there anything out there, and thank you for Cheryl saying that you've gone into this and you've looked into the other areas, but somewhat of a cooling off zone, not a splash pad, something to where, when you go to maybe some of the festivals, these other things where they have just something to where someone can go in that park to cool off with their kids, and maybe it's a mist thing, or there's not really a water type. Have you looked into that, or could you look into that? Is there anything out there that might be?
So, yes, I've looked into it. It's certainly something we can look into more. I guess with something like that, the major cost is the infrastructure, not actually the feature. So it's expensive for what you get out of it. So like something like a mister, something that sounds like just as easy as hooking up a hose and just having something come out that's pretty cheap. A lot of those are a lot more expensive than you would imagine just because of the infrastructure involved to do that. That doesn't mean it's not a possibility. They come out with new products and stuff all the time. So, what you see there today isn't necessarily the finished product. We could always change or manipulate things, but I think if I put some products in front of you and showed you the cost, just even for something that small, you'd have a tough decision in front of you as far as saying, this is worth the expense to do this, because it's going to take out something much larger to do something, that might only accommodate a handful of people. But it's certainly something we can investigate further.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda, Chief Howarth, Police Department.
Thank you, trustees. Like Josh, I'm going to just kind of hit the highlights here. I'd like to start with this year. You see our appropriations to date, the $5,308,000. With what's in front of you, the appropriations for 2020 is $5,396,000. I will give you highlights here on 2019, the current year. Year to date, as of today, before we came over here, our expenditures were $4,358,000. So our year-end projection, we're going to be under that $5 million level. Not exactly the exact amount, but we're projecting, being at 4.3 right now, it's going to be pretty good savings from our appropriations from the $5,308,000 that we have currently. I'm likewise going to hit the highlights, ones that have some significant changes in dollar amounts from this year to last year. And let me see, I might have left over one paper. Did I leave over my highlights there, Jeff? My budget, yeah, thanks. Likewise, if there's any in between these, I'll be glad to talk about them. But starting with number 190, the salaries, naturally it's contractual as far as some salary increases that we have, 1% for the sworn officers. This does include, once again, the 33rd officer, which we had approved back in the beginning of 2018 that we've held off on because of some insurance costs to see where we fall out. Likewise, I like to see where it falls out this year and where we start next year and the amounts as far as insurance and so forth, and see if it's something we can go ahead with the 33rd in 2020 and see where that impacts us as far as our 5-year plans, our 10-year plans, and so forth, as far as levies go. Second one, medical, you'll see a significant decrease right now, which is a good thing. We reappropriated some money this year. To date, we haven't spent all the money that we reappropriated this year to get up to where we need to be, so hopefully that'll stay where it is. Line item number 311, legal negotiations, contract negotiations are in 2020, so you'll see that increased, doubled basically. From the amount that we had in 2019 where we did not have legal fees as far as negotiations go. You'll see training, actually an increase, line item 318. That increase is leadership development. It's building on with supervisors and command staff that we started with Mount St. Joseph University, which we're no longer doing it through Mount St. Joseph University, but we actually have the ability to use the individual and his company that's actually coming from Mount St. Joseph University. So that's where that training amount of $15,000 throughout the year, where we'll have monthly training sessions with supervision and leadership development. We have an increase on liability, 382, that's given to us by Melanie Hermes, the HR director. No increase in vehicles, anything like that, equipment, but an increase in the liability insurance. 430, tools and equipment, an 18% increase. It's primarily due to the replace our defibrillators are out of warranty, out of service. They're not out of service or out of warranty. So we're considering trying to get them replaced this year. That's the increase that you see in that account. Like we've done in past times that we replaced them, we actually found businesses, private corporations that were willing to help out with that cost. So that's our ultimate goal. But if we don't get there and we want to continue to keep the defibs in service, then we're going to have to be replacing them. Supplies and materials got about a 30% increase due to stuff that were in the budget for training supplies, simunition rooms. What we're doing right now is we're actually, when we're doing simunitions and use of force training, that all three of you have actually had the experience to do, I think, in the academy, we train like that also. And this is actually construction of small floor plans that we can actually put in the building that we all know, but they're actually constructed where we can tear them down, put them up in a different format as far as rooms. So every time we train, it's a different format as far as floor plans is what I'm trying to say. So there's some funds included in there for that. And then uniforms, you'll see a significant increase on uniforms, and that's primarily 100% of that's external vest if we go to our external vest. We continue to look for some grants and BWC and so forth for weight bearing, taking the weight off the hips and off the belt and getting it up on the chest to displace a little better. So if we go to external vests, that's what that cost would be. And then our drug fund, you'll see an increase in the drug fund, $599. That's actually to purchase an incinerator with our drug money that we get, where we can actually dispose of the narcotics and marijuana and everything ourselves by burning it in an incinerator instead of what we do with it now, which is take it across town to a steel mill. So, questions about any of those line items or any other line items that I did not cover? There's small increases or less increases or decreases in all the line items. Some stayed the same. But I think our real test is where we're going to end up at the end of this year as far as our end-of-year expenditures, see what we're carrying over into next year. By the numbers you can see, by our revenue and by our appropriations, we're going into the well, but we're doing our best that we can to continue that on. I mean, it would be great if our year-end expenses didn't exceed the 2019 revenue. So we'll see where that falls. And that way we didn't dip into it any. And we'll continue on. Questions?
Trustee Davis?
No.
Trustee Sturts?
But the decrease, that's a huge decrease in motor vehicles.
You
Remind
know,
me why it was so high last year.
Right. That actually, the one motor vehicle is an unmarked car replacing an old Impala that we have. And actually, Assistant Chief Jeff and I talked about this on the way over there. Last year, we put in at Jack's request that amount of money, because that's what money was being brought in from the sale of 3 vehicles that we had. So we were showing that because we could use that out of the revenue and then cover the balance with TIF. So that is not in there this year, which I think we're anticipating 3 vehicles is what we put in for the TIF funds. So it's not that we're not getting vehicles. It's not that we're not getting less vehicles. We're getting the same amount of vehicles. It's just the $37,000 that you see is actually an unmarked car if I go along with it. Try not to stretch out the Impala.
Actually, Chief, I only had one question on all of this, and that was on the squad room flooring.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we had in this year's budget, and we would still like to do this year. I mean, the question comes up is how much money you put into that building if we're
That's
looking
why I was questioning it.
to do something else. To me, personally, for the amount of time I think we're still going to be in that building, it would be very beneficial to get done because it is a small amount,
Okay.
considering a budget of what
So
we have.
It's necessary for day-to-day right now.
Yes, I would
Okay.
like to consider. We had it in this year's budget, and like I said, for that amount, I mean, if we get 3 years out of it, let's be realistic. If anything happens, it's not going to be tomorrow, and we're going to be in that room. So regardless, if we don't go with that flooring, which is recommended and that you see going in a lot, that type of flooring and polished concrete, if not, we're going to probably have to replace the carpet sooner or later too, so.
And there was just one other question, and that was, when we spend $3,000 a year to wash the cars,
Correct.
There's a lot of these mobile units now that you can drive a car through. Does that not clean well enough for you?
Mobile units.
Yeah, they're just, a lot of large apartment condo complexes have them. You just drive your car through it. It's like a arch, and you hit the button, and the water comes out, and it does a fairly decent job. And I'm just thinking for $3,000 over a period of time, maybe we'd be better off investing in our own simple unit of washing the cars.
I've never seen one, actually.
Oh, really?
No, I haven't.
We actually have one in Florida.
They're $3,000. Maybe we could get a few of them for the park, Josh.
Yeah. She doesn't know what they cost.
See?
She just-
Right.
I don't know what
yeah.
they cost.
So you're
but
talking,
it just
I mean-
seems maybe
Right.
maybe it's time to look into something to do our own car wash.
Right. I mean, our car washes, the way that works is Mike's Car Wash on Glenway gives,
Oh, I know they're good to
gives
us.
us a deal, and they charge us X amount per wash. It's all regulated. We get a sticker on the car. It just deducts it from the amount I purchased at the beginning of the year. You know, with possibly a new car wash coming up on Delhi Pike, that might be an option too.
Okay.
You know,
I mean,
in the past, they didn't cost us anything, it was provided, you know.
In the total picture of your expenditures, I mean, $3,000's not going to make us or break us. I'm just trying to think.
And with that, I'll say that, give it to the troops. Fire department, I think, will stand behind it too, is a lot of times they wash their cars. I mean, there's some that don't like driving through it. They enjoy keeping their car clean on their own, and they vacuum it out and go either firehouse and clean it or in our garage and clean it, so.
Okay, all right.
But I will look into those, but, they might be a little costly, we'll see.
Yeah.
It's activated by a little
Little button.
button. Out comes the water. Okay, any other questions?
Oh, man.
Mr. Luby?
No questions.
All right, thank you, Chief.
Appreciate it.
All right. All right, Public Works, Director Ron Ripperger.
Thank you, trustees. I'll recap a little bit, anything major in 2019. I think one of the bigger things that was a pretty good positive number for us, and we could talk about some of the problems we had with that later, but the road project came in at $180,000 less than what we anticipated. The contract that we ended up going with was just a lot lower than the others, which kind of surprised us just because the construction industry is pretty busy now. So overall, we were pretty happy with that. Let's see, operating costs normally stays the same for us for, I don't know, as long as I can remember. The only thing that really changes is the amount we put toward our paving project every year. That'll fluctuate per account, but it's always roughly 400 to 500,000 a year, give or take a little bit.
Gasoline tax.
I'll get to that. Yes.
Okay.
So let's see. As you can see on the certified number for 2020, we usually keep a balance of anywhere from 800,000 to 1.2 million, give or take a little bit. And I think that was always designed in case we had an emergency such as Dayton had, or to cover some of the cost of that is why we did that. So if it gets too high, we just, run it down by putting that money into paving projects. So that's what we normally do per account. Let's see, salt, I can touch base with that later, but we really haven't had any bad winters, and hopefully it stays like that. So we haven't had to talk about that much lately. Oh, okay. Let's see, as a little bit different from the other departments, we have 4 accounts. It's kind of set up that way per the Ohio Revised Code, and just different ways we receive money just to put into the roads. The revenue source normally stays the same on those also, which I'll get to the gasoline fund here in a second. you switch? But motor vehicle license tax, the revenue pretty much stays the same on that.
Point of clarification, please. Will you do by numbers, Ron?
Do you have
You go
page
by
numbers?
Numbers, yeah.
I
if you don't
don't
mind.
believe.
323?
323, repairs
Oh,
and maintenance,
okay.
right? Okay.
Okay, they don't have,
We don't have those in our book.
gotcha.
It's up there.
Well, I can roll through these real
If you're
fast.
going through your binder, it's the first fund 2011
Yeah.
Fund 2011.
Okay,
that he's talking about.
thank you.
But on the board up here, let's see, that's the normal, what we get is 20,500. This year, let's see, we always take insurance and bonding out of that. That hovers around 10,000. This year it's 11,000. And then we let that build up 10,000 every year, and then we put, like this, for 2020, we're putting 50,000 toward the road project out of that account. And that is really the only thing that goes on in that account. Usually it's just one item, but this year it's two. Any questions on that? And for the gasoline fund, which was a good amount of talk throughout the year, just because they did do a little hike in that, which helped us out. It didn't quite double it. Our 2020 revenue is expected to be at $340,000, and I did check that with the assistant fiscal officer on what we received in the past few months and the increase that started a little after, I guess, probably August, and it was right on what the estimated amount was that we received from, I believe, the state. So, and since we received that hike this year on, it's 2021, 330 is the first page of the gasoline tax. Is that what you're on? Mm-hmm. For contracted services, 360, so that's where you see the amount going into road project, 250,000. Also at the end of there, account number 760, motor vehicle. We were going to purchase a new foreman's truck for 35,000.
A new what?
Foreman's
truck?
truck, yes. And that is really, I mean, we can skip through the pages here, but salt's in there, and like I said, that's really been pretty uneventful. It's been the same. We've received a good price from going off the city's contract for probably close to 5 years now. So we've been happy with that.
And the dome is full?
It's pretty close.
And it's salt available?
Yes. Any questions in gasoline?
Okay, you had the salt loader rental of 7,000. Again, we're talking small dollars in the,
Yep.
in the grand scheme of things, but we share that cost with
Correct. We actually just did
Hamilton County and Oak Hills, right?
we just did a resolution with that, and Hamilton County pays 40%, we pay 40%, and Oak Hills pays 20%.
So the 70,000 is our 40%, or that's the total cost?
That's, you see how that, let's see, that is out of contracted services, where it was 260. That's out of that $10,000, $7,000 is.
But that's our portion. 7,000 is our portion.
No, we front it, and it gets reimbursed to us.
Thank you.
That's, okay.
Yes. So it really is a big savings for everybody involved that takes salt out of our dome, really. It's great. I think we've been doing that close to 10 years now,
Okay.
and real happy with it. Any other questions for gasoline? Okay. Road and bridge. Revenues honestly stayed the same in for 2020. I have it at about 670,000.
600, I've got 694.
Yeah, I was going to say, your numbers are a little lower
Yeah,
than
I've
ours.
got 694 too.
From this page,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's appropriation, right?
Ours is dated 10/14.
Oh, okay, maybe
I mean, they may
I
have been
prob-
updated since and we just didn't
Yeah.
get it.
I usually estimate a little lower on the revenue, but that account has gone up every year in revenue.
Okay. I mean, our numbers match what's up there, is what we're
Okay.
saying. We're good.
Road contract out of the road and bridge. I think we drained that account down just from previous road projects, and we're only taking 100,000 out of that this year. Another worthy note is our pavement management system. You guys have probably heard this before, but every other year somebody comes out, a private contractor, and rates all of our streets, and that's $7,000. So that's come in pretty handy. Other than that, I don't really have a lot of control as far as I get the numbers from HR and stuff for salaries and that. Any other questions for that?
How many CDL drivers do we have now?
Let's see. I'm going to say about 11.
Okay.
12. Yeah.
12 CDLs?
Yes.
So we're covered for snow.
We used to have a few more, but yeah, we should be good.
Okay.
We've had some light winters, so
Knock on wood.
yeah.
Yeah.
We just missed 2 snowstorms, some pretty big ones.
Yeah, you're right. We haven't seen the woolly worms yet. We don't know how thick they are.
Any other questions for Road and Bridge? It's pretty uneventful, that account is, really. Okay. Motor vehicle permissive. That has really stayed the same as far as revenue for as long as I can remember. I'm on the first page of motor vehicle permissive. Accounting and legal fees, we've had kind of hiked up a little bit just to front some money for the FEMA project when it starts. We have always gotten refunded or reimbursed
Right.
for any of those amount we spend, but so I don't see a problem with that again.
Ron, how often did we submit for reimbursement on FEMA? Did that have to be at the end of the job, or it seemed to me like we did an interim reimbursement?
Quarterly.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. 323 repairs and maintenance is a pretty big hike. At our building down there, we're replacing the last heater in the mechanics bay for $22,000. Everything else in the building has pretty much been updated as far as HVAC, but this bay actually had 2 heaters, so we just kept running it until we couldn't run it anymore. So it's time. We still have heat, so it didn't affect anything, but it's finally gone. And then the rest of that account was just miscellaneous repairs. And as far as motor vehicle permissive, I don't really have any other highlights unless somebody had some questions in here.
No.
It's really those accounts have stayed the same for a long time.
So these are the streets as proposed for repair?
Correct. And out of every account, let's see.
I thought I saw somewhere that we had Francis Ridge on there, and that's not listed.
It's in our plan coming up, but not in the next 2 years, I believe. Do you know where you've seen that?
Yeah, I do. 2020 streets, Francis Ridge. Rated poor. Clare Valley, rated poor.
I mean, I think we want to do that with Riverwatch at some point soon.
Well,
But
Riverwatch we've got down for 2021.
I don't know where. I mean, I remember seeing that. I know it's coming up, but I normally don't put it on a year.
It's your schedule from last year.
Was it? It changes.
Remember, this is a shell game they play.
No, we
I
kind of got
know.
away from that. But yeah, I mean, we have a dream list of what we'd like to pave, but when it comes to actual money, sometimes we cut that down. But that area we want to get into. We want to do some in Delshire, which is what we're doing in 2020, and then Howard on Hill, Greenwell, all that. But that's probably going to take a couple of years to do all that. That's a lot of streets, long streets. So, let's see. So our motor vehicle fund for 2020 is $50,000 that we're putting toward that. Gasoline, $250,000, which is probably the most I've ever taken out of that account to put toward a road project. Road and bridge is $100,000, and motor vehicle permissive is $100,000. Our TIF request, I believe the administrator has us down for $300,000, and then the general fund always covers our sidewalks and then gets reimbursed, and it's set up for $80,000. So that's $880,000. Any questions on those streets?
Just a quick question. When you decide how to do these, and I see all these are in the same area, are you doing these on the area, or what's the ranking if they're marked poor, say Francis Ridge and back in there? It's a
You want to stay in the area to get a better price through the contractor?
Okay, so are all those streets then that I'm looking on the board, they're not all marked poor then?
No. Definitely 4 of them are. The Park Trails and Park Mont and Park Trace butts up next to that subdivision, and we're going to do it while we're there, but it doesn't need curb.
Okay.
So we're picking them, and it's a lot. You save a lot of money by just asphalting. So that's some of the reasoning there. And the contractors do like to see them bunched up. They can get in, out faster, keep all their equipment there. That is one thing they definitely look at.
Okay.
Yeah, we do take a lot of things into consideration for, to help benefit the residents and get a better price from the contractor to keep the...
I think it does come down to price, because the residents obviously would disagree with you. They would say, how come that street is, and look at
Yes.
this, and that's what we get when they contact us.
And we do get that sometimes, but...
Yeah.
I know I had recently taken a phone call for that on a street we did in the past couple of years, and I noted that, we didn't do the curb, which is a huge amount of money. So they understood that once I told them that.
You and I had a conversation about follow-up on these contractors
Sure.
regarding the slip-up on Canis. So do we have some stop gaps in place to make sure that we don't have that happen again?
I know I've talked to the administrator a bunch about this. Overall, the quality of work was good that we received. Just the way that they went about some of the work was kind of odd, and that's some of it just being a newer crew put together.
Well, going about the work put a lot of our residents out. It disrupted their neighborhood, disrupted their life through the summer, and I think we need to follow up with these contractors and let them know that, we have the interests of our residents first and foremost, and so clean it up and move your trucks, and when you're finished with your mess, clean up appropriately.
And we did set up and talk to the owner of the company this year. We've had them previously. We haven't had a lot of problems. We just had to,
Well, thank you for
Contact them and-
Thank you for making them aware, but next time make sure we keep a watchful eye to that.
we definitely received a good amount of complaints, and it did kind of drag on a little longer than normal, that's for sure.
Yeah,
It never goes super fast, but it definitely drug on a little bit this year.
and the weather was great.
True.
I mean, we understand the Mother Nature problem here, but, okay, just so long as you've got something in place that this is under a watchful.
Yes. And this, I know we just talked about it, trying to get it put out to bid a little earlier isn't going to hurt. Last year, not that we weren't really ready, I think we were in the middle of switching lawyers, slowed it down some, and we like to give the residents a little bit of time to do the sidewalks and stuff on their own also, so that it all throws a little wrench in things where we can't just, as soon as the first sunny day come out and start working. So there are some things that slow us down. But we want to get out early next year for bid.
Any other questions? Trustee Davis, Trustee Searles? Jim?
Nope.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Gee, if I've lost the agenda, does that mean nobody's next? Next, we'll have Fire Department, Chief Doug Campbell.
Thank you, trustees. I appreciate this opportunity again to go through each line item of my budget in detail with each of you, just to make sure we're, oh, no. I see the look. I do want to briefly kind of touch on what got us to this point. Essentially, you do recall this is the first year of our new operating levy. A lot of what I do as an exercise with the FAB board and fiscal officer Luby will, definitely relate, is kind of keeping my eye on projections. So a lot of the things I want to discuss tonight are in relation to how things will pan out. This levy was designed to go through 2023, and ultimately, whenever I sit down and go through these budget numbers, that's always a consideration, because a responsible levy to our residents, you don't want to overshoot the mark. You want to be responsible, so you're trying to find that sweet spot, that number that supports our operation without overburdening our residents. So that process was done in 2018. That exercise was in the first and second quarter of 2018 in preparation to pass this levy. So when I talk about projections, where we're at, those are numbers that I was using then to formulate our path to at least through 2023. Ideally, if I can make this 6-7 year levy, that's what I want to do. So with that in mind, I think it's important to kind of address in my budget things that are out of whack for, anomalies for projection. To give an example, I'm about 13% over what I projected my hospitalization to be. Not a huge number, but you're talking with the number of months, to prepare, look at, and the changes in my organization. We've grown by 3 staff positions. We have paramedics, new people, and with turnover, you have marriages and families. So those type of things, it's predictable. So 13%, it doesn't break the bank. It's something that I can look out to 2023 and go, this is something we can absorb. One that comes to mind that I think probably you were alerted to would be my 323 account, 220323. It's about a 407% above projection appropriation. One thing that just jumps out in particular is our apparatus are on a replacement schedule of in the neighborhood of about 20 years. We want to get to that 20-year mark. With that being said, our aerial apparatus has seen significant rust growing underneath the body where it attaches to the frame. So with the ongoing damage that's occurring, we can't stop using salt on the roads, and they're saying the corrosive nature of the salt and the beet juice and those things on the trucks, plus how they're set up. I mean, we wash them every day. It doesn't go far enough to prevent the corrosion of this vehicle. City of Harrison had the sister truck. They have since gotten rid of theirs because of rust problems. I don't think, responsibly talking, it's almost $1 million, apparatus. Replacing it now, when I'm trying to get it to go to 2028, wouldn't be responsible. So therein lies the issue. After I had submitted my TIF request, we had quotes come through. I was dealing with an early quote of $144,000. We had Pierce, the manufacturer of the truck, actually come down. They promised to get the quote back before this meeting, and they're pushing it off to the end of the week. I've heard it could be up as high as $250,000. So we're at $200,000 as a placeholder in this, knowing that In order to get this truck to last its lifespan, it's either do we go through the motions and try to replace it at $1 million, or do we fix this, get it right, and get it to its service life to 2028? That is that $200,000 represents. Now, again, coming to you with the idea that this isn't an anomaly. This puts my projections way out of whack for it. That's 3.6% of my levied funds in 1 year for one apparatus. So to put it in perspective, one of the things I'd like to talk about, or at least have a conversation on, is, since I am looking out to the future, I have it in my levy funds to cover it. The reason I'm bringing this up is you want to see that this can go to 2023. This is definitely an early red flag. I think it's more responsible not to look to replace it, but to actually have it taken care of. But this is a sizable dent in my operation because that truck doesn't get fixed overnight. It could be up to 6 months that it's out of service. It's the only aerial we have. It is important to our operation. So this one in particular, I would ask that the board consider this as a TIF expense. Even though I have it in my budget, it was after we had already done our TIF request that this kind of cropped up on us. We don't have to discuss it now, but...
Well, we kind of do. The truck right now, because, you had me down to look at the rust, and it's there. Of course, I'd like to see it last to 2028. And I'm trying to rationalize putting the money into it now to have it last that 9 years, I guess, 8 years. 7.5 if it's going to be out of commission for 6 months, against the cost of a new truck. And then with a new truck, I'm wondering, do we need to replace the truck with what we have, or is there a different version or a different need that needs to be addressed with a different truck that maybe we need to have a discussion about?
Certainly. That we're in the process of speccing a replacement for one of our older engines, the one at Greenwell. And in that process, you evaluate what your needs are, what's the mission of the department in the area it's covering. So the design of the truck we're speccing now is for the Eastern District. What kind of runs we get out there, what kind of things we experience. So certainly, that plays a part in it. But I know that's on the table. This vehicle is not the oldest in the fleet.
Well, and we also have an obligation to provide fire service and safety for things like the mother house, the dormitory at the Mount, you've got 3 stories at Bailey. We're talking about a development at Remke. I understood when we got into the Quint that the number one reason for the Quint wasn't so much the vertical of the ladder as it was the horizontal for the setback for the homes in Delhi Township. So in other words, we pull up on your street and we drop the ladder this way in order to reach the structure.
And that's consistent. I think you could check our social media page, and almost every picture of the ladder,
we're on a horizontal.
It's almost horizontal to reach the roof. So yes.
But now, with the new structures that could be coming our way, it might just as well need to be a vertical ladder. But there's different types of trucks and there's different types of innovations, and I just think that we need to really delve into what the needs are, what we understand our future needs to be, measure it against what you can safely and maintain your fire levy within your time frame, and then decide what it's either the repair or it's cut bait and go for the new truck.
No, absolutely. I have a tremendous resource as a mechanic in our fleet mechanic, and definitely utilizing him as a subject matter expert in this dealing. He's been helpful in coordinating with the manufacturers in speccing trucks.
And I too talked to Harrison, and Harrison's truck was in a lot worse shape than ours, and I think that's to your credit for bringing it in every time and scrubbing the bottom of it, that we have the amount of rust that we have versus what they had, because theirs was really bubbled and coming off in chunks.
Yeah, and ours is delaminating. It's getting to that point, and I've been, when you talk about that vehicle would have to go to Wisconsin, back to the manufacturer, the entire body lifted off the frame, completely cleaned out, remove all the rust, and repainted. It is a sizable amount of work, but this is an investment on behalf of the township and the community. It's something that I don't have a replacement for it. It's not readily right around the corner. So it's not like something that we mothball it and then I can duplicate it. It does hamper our operation.
Okay, Mr. Davis, do you have any questions?
I do think obviously it's going to be a discussion sooner than later that we're going through. The needs changed, and did you include it in this, or is it still to come that we're looking at that possibly?
I would ask that the board consider it as a TIF
Request.
request. However, at the timing,
we don't have an amount, really,
We don't
do
have.
we?
Okay.
No, and it could be as soon as Friday. I mean, ideally, I will get to you as soon as possible when I know what that amount is. Like I said, it was 144 to have Finley, another manufacturer, kind of short end some of the work, and it could be as high as $250,000 to send it. So that's where that 200,000. I'm just trying to do a placeholder so I can responsibly give you a number where I think we're going to be at.
He has the repair amount included in his repairs.
That's what
The repair amount, yeah.
This repair
He has
budget,
that.
yes.
He would like to not have to take it out of his fire levy fund, and so if you come to the decision of doing the repair, would you be amenable to doing it out of the TIF? My thought, and it's probably not a decision you need to make today, other than I think you need to decide if you want to go for just replacing it with a new piece of equipment. Because if it's a $200,000 repair to something that's going to last 8 years, I'm not sure that is appropriate, but probably have a discussion before you come to final decision on where and what you're going to do.
And how old is that? It's not that
It's a
old.
2008.
Right.
Yeah, just, I mean, it is in light of the fact that, the board, I need to replace a engine in 2021, and we're already speccing that engine and we'll be working towards replacing that. And because the manufacturer times can be 12 to 16 months, and to have an engine ready by June 1st of 2021, we're just a few months from pulling the trigger on that one. So this is in light of that. And I understand this is the conversation we need to have, but it was not really on the radar until we knew just how significant we're dealing with it. It's more than rust. It's affecting components in the hydraulics and other items. It's not unsafe, but this is an idea. We don't have the luxury of waiting and letting it get worse, because then the cost increases.
I have a funny fear, because having come from a little bit of the car history, when you take a vehicle and you strip it of its frame and you move its body and you put it back together, sometimes it's not as good as it was when you sent it there. And I mean, it's just the process of torquing it, moving it, the whole piece. So I think this whole thing about the truck needs to be a top-line conversation. We need to get into availability. I think also, besides TIF, I believe when we bought the Quint, we actually took a loan out on that. Jim?
I think that's part of the bond, the original bond.
No, because that was
Or was that
FAB.
part of the refunding?
That was FAB, around, how old is the truck?
It was 2008.
8. So it was FAB around 2007, and I think we actually financed that truck. So let's look at all available options to pay for it against the cost of repairs. And let's get the truck that meets the needs now, as well as what we anticipate what these needs are going to be in the future. So as far as your budget, I would feel comfortable with you leaving in the amount for the repair at this point, with a full note that we may come back and address this again.
Okay.
Trustee
Okay.
Davis, your thoughts on this?
100%, yeah. And I think you're right, because I think I was on then when we did that.
You were.
Yeah. And that's
You were.
exactly, I think, how we did that, so.
In fact, I think it might have even been Fifth Third Bank, so I'm just
saying.
saying, I'm thinking.
Okay.
I remember that being on FAD.
Yep. Do you have any other
I
questions?
do have a question for Kevin. Kevin Braun, you have this look on your face like are we missing something? I mean, you've been around a long time. What's up?
Well, I'm calling for public questions. Do you have any or comments? Anyone?
Okay.
I don't disagree with you. I think I did a little bit of car business myself too before I went to fire service and things. When you start doing major repairs, things don't always end up like they were. I hate to see a truck that's 10 years old that's projected to last, well, not chief will know better than me, 20, probably plus 25 maybe.
Well, and that,
You don't want to throw good money at bad money either.
right. And you know what, Chief, there's also, if we put that truck up for sale right now, maybe a warmer climate that doesn't get hit with salt might be able to get more years out of it than what we get. So maybe the resale on it would be higher now.
They quoted me at 150,000.
Is what we would get out of it.
We'd get 150,000 out of a $800,000 truck.
Yeah.
And we need to throw $250,000 at it.
And we need to throw $250,000 at it in repairs.
Yeah.
So this is much more difficult than when you do a chassis exchange or a body exchange with
This would be what's considered a refurbish. So, I mean, it is in line with you're coming back with a new truck. It's still the same motor. It's still the same cab. It gets repainted because they have to do those things. But this is in light of what they can see. They can't see what's between the frame and the torque box until they take it off. If there's degradation into the frame, then it's a game changer. It's more problems, and again, I don't want to give you the sense that, it's not safe to drive, it's not safe to operate. I've given all assurances. We can continue to operate it as is, but we have got to make a decision because going forward, this is going to be a decision maker, on what we do with an essential part of our operation. It's something that we have. I support that, because of our deployment resources and stuff, it's a needed requirement. However, it could probably be tweaked a little bit. If you're talking about tandem axle versus single axle and weight differentials and stuff like that, yeah, there's different ways to go about those things. And assurances that the mechanic, says it is safe for the people to use. We're to that point, but we do need to make a decision.
All right, Mr. Cameron, I'm comfortable with leaving the repair amount in the budget for now, with putting this for further discussion and a lot of investigation, because we need to consider the needs now as well as future needs of, hopefully the truck will last 20 years. So you're okay with that?
Yeah, more
with that?
information.
Definitely needs to be
All
investigated.
right. Did you have anything more on here, Doug?
Yes, buildings.
Buildings, yeah.
Yes.
That was my next one.
So I just recently, in October, we've had off again, on again, non-hazardous mold issues cropping up at Rapid Run, all related to the HVAC, high humidity. We've had the ductwork cleaned. It comes back. The crews have all cleaned it. We've used mold cleaners trying to regulate it. What it comes back to is we paid for an engineering study, and they have told us outright those units need to be replaced. They're the wrong engineered units for that station. Those are replacement units. They're only a couple years old, but they are the same size that were put in there back in 2001.
Is this the black dust that's coming out
Yeah.
of nowhere?
Yeah. So when the engineering study was done at a cost of $45,000, they're recommending, since we need to replace the units and go with smaller units, they also said the time is ticking for the furnaces. They've reached their max capacity. They can go at any minute. They need to be taken out as well. So again, it leaves me with a $45,000 anomaly. Again, this is just like on top of things I've already requested in TIF. This continues to go askew. I'm still trying to hit that projection mark in 2023. This is just something that getting hit with two whammies is a little bit out of notice. I've been assured that these changes long term. Again, you got to think if we can get another 18 years out of furnaces and things and address these other problems, and we don't have any other long-standing problems. But this is the difficulty in managing 50,000 square feet of township facilities. I mean, it is a lot of area to cover, and HVAC has been our nemesis. So that would be
These
another
units
one.
only cover the fire station. They don't go over into the school district building.
Correct. This
Okay.
is only the 11,000 square feet in the fire station.
They have different units?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So one at $470,000 over projection, one at 470% over projection, and one at 134% over projection. So when I sat down and crunched these numbers to get this levy to go 5 years, these are way out of whack for typical. You can see they just have these single year jumps. So again, I'd ask the board to consider these as part of as a TIF expense if possible. Last but not least, another jump. I've got 165% over projection in my machinery, equipment, and furniture. That's 760740. What we are dealing with in that is the county is changing their 911 CAD system, and this is our hardware response to their upgrade. They are going to phase out. I've been told that phase in to the new hardware and new system would be around February, and phase out of what we currently, how we're dispatched, would be around June. So this is something, this is the cost of our new MDC hardware and things to install in the vehicles to accommodate the new changes with the county's response system. So it's going to be better on both ends. It's better service provided, and then they're talking about utilizing GPS so that the closest physical unit, they can see where it is on a map, where's the call, and send the closest unit. So ideally, the winner is the taxpayer, the 911, service user. So that's why that's a little bit out. But again, that I can adjust to operationally. That is one that's definitely, I wanted to explain why the increase in that. The only other thing I have is my equipment on the EMS side. We have had such good success with the cots that we were awarded under grant. There's really no reason why we don't pay the expense to have all frontline vehicles. So that will allow us to have a power lift cot in the rapid run station's medic unit.
And
We will
which
cover
line
that
does that come
cost.
under?
That will be under
760?
760740, but it's under the
Oh, it's still under
2281
the-
account.
Okay.
And that's at $49,000. So we did upgrade 2 of the medic units with those power cots, and they've been such a big hit with the crews. It's the safest bet. It's going to save a lot on wear and tear on backs and knees and things. The only other outlandish increase is probably all my soap and water because the police are washing their trucks over at the fire stations. But we can absorb that.
Lock it up.
So those were big hot pie in the sky projection things. I have most of, you can see my line items are decreases, and that's our adjustment from a part-time department with small full-time staff now to much more sizable full-time staff, less part-time. So those are where we're seeing the natural adjustments: decrease in part-time wage, decrease in Social Security, increase in pension, increase in full-time salaries. This does not account for any additional staff that was done this year, and some of what I'm seeing year in, we're probably going to hit about 92% expended with 2019. Would be the adjustments. I've had 3 full-time firefighters that were higher in the pay scale leave, and then we hired brand new people that are lower in the pay scale. The only change that you'll see budgetarily is newer staff go through and get raises faster than those that have been here for a while. But do you have any questions on anything that I did not cover? Or?
Trustee Davis?
No, thank you, Chief.
Trustee Sturts?
You covered it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Yep. Sure
Thank
did.
you and good evening.
Good evening, Patty, Information Technology Director.
Thank you
You're
very
on.
much. Thank you very much. Since IT does not have its own funds and the expenses come from the multiple departments and multiple accounts, I'm just going to highlight some key factors and projects. So I'd like to start with our network switches. It is a 3-year contract. We are mid-cycle. As you know, the switches are the backbone of the network, and all departments depend on it for everything, their data, the programs, the internet, everything. So that aids in better providing services, and that yearly cost is $14,800. That's out of the general. Another key contract is our supplemental IT support with Velicor, and that contract is designed in like a retainer-based fashion, plus would they also allow us to have 4 hours per week on site. And you may recall that we experienced a total network outage earlier this year, and all systems were down, and Velicor dispatched their top engineers for us, and they worked tirelessly with Dell and Microsoft to bring our network back online, and we did not lose any data. They continued to work with Dell over the next several weeks to find the root cause and to completely resolve the issue. So the relationship for that expert external support is imperative, and that yearly cost is $27,720, and that is shared amongst all the departments under shared services. Projects that we had was the PC replacement rollout. We are in year 2 in 2019, but 2020 will be our 3rd and final year of that rollout. In 18, we replaced 23 PCs. This year was 30, and we only have 3 for next year to comply with Microsoft decommissioning Windows 7. That will complete the PC fleet, and then that won't come up again until 2023. The new project we have for next year, or for 2020, is an off-site backup storage replacement. Our current system is located at the Fire Station 33 in the basement in a security room, and we consider it off-site because our on-site backups are here in the administration building. So it's far enough away for a plane taking out the admin building or something like that. It's a Dell device, and it's no longer under warranty and is no longer supported, and its current capacity is 36 terabytes, and that's only enough to cover 9 months of an off-site backup. So that's not optimal. 12 months is optimal for off-site storage, and so with continued data growth, I'm recommending replacing it with a device with 64 terabytes. That budget cost is $25,000, and that is also earmarked for the general fund. But I want to explain an important role that the backup off-site plays. First and foremost, your systems and data are only as good as your backups. And case in point was when the PAMET, if everybody remembers, the record management system for the police department that was an online system at the time, when they had a catastrophic failure, their backup systems also failed, and they were ineffective, and they were unable to recover any data. But with our backup systems, we were able to bring PAMET back into our in-house network and restore all the data from backups up to the point for when we switched to the online system. So we only suffered 3 months of data loss, because that's how much we were in the cloud with them, instead of all 5 years. So in the event of a tragic thing like a plane or tornado, or a malicious attack that would attack our admin where we keep our on-site backups, we would still have the ability to recover and restore all of our systems and data from off-site backups. And so we think Station 30 is off-site enough. But that's really the only major project I have next year. Aside from that, all the other costs related to IT are just to maintain what we currently have. for all the departments.
Last year, we talked about doing the switches and cycles and not doing them 100% at a time, but I think we changed that after we started. Is that correct?
Yeah, because we were offered to get all the switches at once and pay no interest over 3 years. So that's what that 3-year contract of switches
That's what that was.
about.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I have no further questions. Rose?
No, self-explanatory. Thank you. You did a great
Okay.
job.
Quick question.
Yes.
With the offsite backup, does that protect us from someone hacking our system and holding us ransom?
Yes, it will not affect that.
Okay.
It can't get to the encrypted part of that system. It's not
Okay.
considered online, even though we know it's online.
Okay.
They can't get to it.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Patty. All right, Human Resources. Melanie?
HR is a lot like IT. We don't have our own line items, but we affect everybody. And ours is even worse because we have appropriations in 2 places. We take the money from everybody's account and we put it in a different account and then we spend it from there. So mine is one of the biggest reasons that we sometimes have the double appropriations. So I kind of apologize for that, but that's just the nature of fund accounting. As you recall, we had a strong year with our health insurance. Kind of the good news on that is we had individuals hit their stop loss, and stop loss is designed where we pay it, and then the stop loss carrier reimburses us. So we spend the money, but then we get some of it back. And then once that money's back, we can then appropriate it again to spend again. So again, not only are we now double accounting, sometimes we're triple accounting. So again, it's just the nature of the beast because of self-funded, because of health insurance. But the good news on the money that we brought in, we did have someone that was on COBRA. So anyone who's on COBRA, once you finish working for us, if you had health insurance, you're able to continue your health insurance by paying the full amount plus a 2% service fee. So we got all that reimbursed, and that person is no longer on COBRA. The time has expired. We also got the 2 small amounts. We had a wellness grant, so we did get about $5,500 reimbursed for our wellness programming. And then our prescription plans through custom design benefits, we did get almost $15,000 back from that. As I said, those were my small numbers. For the individuals that reached their individual stop loss, we did receive a little bit over $67,000 back reimbursed. And then for our aggregate, so this is the part where they said, okay, here's the expected. Here's the max. So we hit the expected, we kept going, we hit that max, and then we hit that max and we were like, yeah, we're gonna keep going. So we received $232,000, almost $233,000 back. So almost $250,000 back from our aggregate stop loss. So again, we had budget numbers for 2019, a very strong year of using health insurance. The good news is, in 2020, that means our numbers are actually a little bit better for 2020 when it becomes our medical insurance. And that includes additional full-time people. Again, I was mentioned people getting married, having babies. So even with that changeover, we went from 92 people January 1st of this year with 86 of them on our health insurance plus their families to 96 eligible on 12/1 of this year with 91 on our health insurance plans, with the majority of them being family plans. So that's in 2020, even though it's a little bit, it's actually much more attractive because of that. Some of the highlights I'm looking forward to 2020 is how our health is going to affect our claims. We've had some, since October 1st, people using that, and it seems to be an attractive opportunity, especially with the Green Township location on Harrison Road opening just yesterday. We've already had someone use it, so that's great utilization. So I'm excited for the new year. Our workers' comp percentage went down a teensy bit. We're still budgeting the same amount, but it did decrease. So it's all looking good from an HR standpoint.
Are we okay with the timing of the workers' comp premium? I think we had an extra one that we weren't expecting.
We will be paying it in this month.
Okay, so that's accounted for then.
I have given the information over. I'm not sure that it's in UAN yet, but we are planning on paying it. It's due December 26th.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Trustee Davis? Trustee Sturts?
Thanks for the
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And the 233 you're talking about just came in.
Yes.
This week.
This week. So we've received back the amount of money that I've put in. Yeah, I'm going to take the credit for the amount that that gets put in. Has been 320,000 plus. So that's how much has been reimbursed to our plan.
So as you look at the numbers on the screen, the actual amount we've had to appropriate to the self-insurance fund to pay bills is 1.833 million. But take 320,000 off of that because it gets reimbursed. So then if you add that to the revenue line below it, you see where they kind of come in even. This year's appropriation amount is 1.383, and there is a difference and a tweak to why that number's lower. Our cost is roughly the same for the plan we've switched to, but we've changed how we generate the premium amount. So with self-insurance, you're in control of it, and so we're counting on the insurance company and our broker to define, here's what the premiums could be. You have a couple different ranges. One is the expected claims. Here's what we really expect you to hit. Here's the maximum based on the stop loss projection. They set the maximum amount. We budgeted the premium based on the maximum amount because we learned this last year. We kept having to adjust because we did it on expected. So the employees' amount went up a little bit because we adjusted it. The hope is that we can build a pot of money and not just spend it throughout the year. We hope we can be below maximum, create a pot, and then ultimately that can affect the premium we have to charge each year. But this year, the premium's at maximum versus expected, so that's generating a little bit of the lower numbers you're seeing with each department, especially police or fire who have, more actual employees on the plan.
Okay.
We're hoping for not as strong of year.
All right. Thank you, Melanie. Trustee Davis, did you have any questions?
All good, all good.
All good? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Coming up here now, Community Development. Community Development Director Greg DeLong.
Righty. I will make this brief. As Administrator Cameron mentioned earlier, we are funded through the general fund, so we don't rely on levies or anything. And looking at the numbers as you can see on the screen, we are actually a department that is reducing our budget this year, our appropriation budget. And we'll go a little bit through that. We have 21 appropriation line items. 5 of them are remaining the same as last year. 10 are proposed to be decreased, and that ranges from 0.8% from our retirement to 67% from our other dues and fees. We have 5 line items proposed for increases, and those are 17% for the Medicare, and one that goes up to 204% for contracted services. And then we have 1 new line item this year, which is unemployment, that we added in. To kind of summarize why we are having some of these reductions, a lot of this has to do with restructuring of our department that occurred in 2019. We do have new staffing levels, new pay rates, as mentioned by previous department heads that you mentioned. We've also made a decision this year not to join the Hamilton County Regional Planning Partnership, which will save us $3,000. And we have also just adjusted basic adjustments based on our historic expenditures from each one of these line items. So that is where you're really seeing the drop in the reductions. Some key items for increases that we're looking at, we would like to keep, we had it budgeted in 2019 for a part-time inspector to help our department out. We would like to keep that budgeted in 2020. Unfortunately, we were unable to fulfill that position this past year due to some unforeseen circumstances in the department and filling our inspector position. So we'd like to keep that budgeted in 2020 so we can get that position filled. The largest increase that we're proposing is under the contracted services. I mentioned that'd be a 204% increase. And that is to basically hire a firm to assist us in a zoning resolution update. For the public, just in case they're unaware, our department covers planning, zoning, and economic development. Our zoning resolution is excessively outdated. There's a lot of errors in it from the numbering of the entire document. There's issues where we would like to add new processes such as conditional uses to our Board of Zoning Appeals, which the Ohio Revised Code allows us to do. Or we would like to go to a planned unit development. It's just a big undertaking for staff to do. In the past, where we have contracted this out for about $35,000, we were able to get the work done at about 20 to 25 because of the staff we have, which is planning staff primarily, and we are good at reviewing those documents when they come in, so it does kind of streamline the process. So we kind of went with that typical number we had before. And the other thing where you're probably seeing line item changes is really under line items 318 and 330. With this new staff we've got, it's a lot more energized. They are wanting to get professional training opportunities, which is exciting for everyone. It's going to be a benefit not only for the organization, but for the community. And so this is kind of to cover some additional training opportunities for the new staff that's on board with us. So that is my quick synopsis of this budget.
Okay.
So the 3,000 from the Hamilton County Regional Planning went into your training services?
Pretty much.
Gotcha.
It just shifted.
We've been with them a long time. Just curious, was there something that kind of
No,
sparked
we
it,
have
or just-
only joined the partnership 2 years ago.
Okay, then I'm thinking something completely different.
Yeah, the partnership is a membership thing. We have requested for training from them. We just are not, we're not receiving what we thought we would get out of it. We kind of joined in the past because they gave us an award for playing the pike, and it was kind of a,
I was going to say, they gave us an award, now we quit?
yeah, well, we weren't a member when they gave us the award, so.
Oh, we weren't.
We were not.
Weren't we members in the past of the regional planning?
Not the regional planning.
I thought we gave them the money, but then we didn't pull out of it because of other things,
And
possibilities.
that's 2,000 to join?
It was like 3,600, and it's going to go up again this year. Most jurisdictions have withdrawn from the partnership. Most of the large townships have over the
I'd rather
past
just
few
buy you a
years.
plaque.
Yeah. You know, the partnership is a great thing if it was fully utilized to their capability, and we're just not receiving the things. They do hold some grants hostage if you're not a partner in it or a member in their partnership, but you know, I think we can manage without being a member this year. We'll see how it goes. Unless you want us to remain a member, we can add it back in.
No,
but-
and it was the Hamilton County Regional Planning because I went
That's
to
a
the
different group.
meetings originally when
Yeah.
it first started. I'm just wondering if they've stopped doing it and then picked back up over the
Regional
last few
planning
years.
is a different group than the partnership. The partnership,
Partnership with regional planning.
yeah, well, it's still regional planning. but-
HCRP.
Yeah, so the partnership, I'm actually a board member on the partnership, so I will more than likely lose my seat, which is okay. But we're
I'm
not getting
objecting.
things.
I think it's fine.
Yeah,
And
we
like how you
joined.
moved it to-
Yeah, we joined in 2018 for the first time since I've been here, and I started in 16. So we joined as 18 and we did 19, but I just don't see the point in continuing at this point. So,
Okay. Thank you.
yeah.
All right. Trustee Sturts?
No, thank you very much.
Greg, I have no questions for you. Looks like you're on top of the dollar. Thank you very much. All right. Whoops, I guess if I lose the agenda again. How about this one?
Norman.
Administration. Mr. Cameron?
That would be me. I put myself last, by the way.
Hold on. What are you signaling to me, Mr. Ryan?
20.
He won't need that.
Oh, I don't know.
I can't read that far, and it's on green paper. But I wanted to clarify, the zoning fund is technically the name of Greg's fund, but we call it the Community Development Department.
Right.
So in case anybody gets confused by the cross-reference, it's actually technically the zoning fund that the money's in. Just briefly, the general fund and each get longer DVDs. Each department head went through their structure of what they operate from. So I don't know if you caught that police chief has two funds. He's got the regular police fund that's a levy and the drug fund. Fire has their fire fund, which is a levy, and an EMS fund, which is a billing fund we get revenue from. Mr. Ripperger has 4 different funds that are set up by the state and funnel money into doing roads and bridges. They are all specific to those operations. You can't take and spend the money somewhere else. The one that you can is a general fund. And so the general fund is kind of all-encompassing of some things, but basically it's to operate the administrative end of the township. Total for the general operating side is about $990,000. So within the 2020 appropriation of $1.755 million, the actual operation of an administrative end is about $990,000, about $52,000 more for towns hall and grounds, just separate fund. That's the way UN and the auditor like to see things. So about $1 million to administratively operate, and that includes salaries for the board, myself, administrative staff, and several other things. As far as out of that particular area of the appropriations, you have that in your book, and it's the 1,000 section, the beginning. No real great notes. Things are relatively similar to what we did in 2019. I will note the liability insurance is expected to be up a little bit. We made some adjustments this past year, and that's, I think Chief Howarth mentioned how his was up a little bit. So that's the only notable up. The health insurance is slightly down. Legal fees were up for this year, but there was quite a few one-offs. Hopefully we don't have as many things, meaning the bike shop issue and now Bearcat, Remke site, and some other things, just getting Brian started in attacking some areas that needed some attention. So
What number was the legal fees?
Right here.
Thank you.
This was this year, and this was 18. Mr. Cameron, on that legal fee, though, law director fees are pretty much the same as they were in 2018, are they not? And that the additional funds are because of special conditions, problems, issues? Don't we have a base billing?
We have an hourly rate.
Okay.
So we do hourly. And in a normal month, it should be in that $4,000 to $5,000 range, and that's where we had been at.
Right.
Because of some, like the bike shop was an appeal that took extra time, so that, I don't know the total we used there, but it's probably in the $10,000 to $15,000 range additional beyond what Brian was doing just normally. The Bearcat storage is appealing, and so he's dealing with that. Same thing, it goes to court. So that'll probably generate that or somewhere in that range. The Remke site, some of that came out of the TIF fund as property purchase, so there was some cost there, but definitely more cost with the activity we had, and that was just the nature of the activity we had for this year. All right, more exciting, and I will note, you'll see within the general fund is a line item to handle the Remke site. Since we are landlords, there will be costs, revenues, and costs related to it. It shouldn't be any overall cost to us. We should recover anything that we have have to put out, but there is a separate line item under the general fund, which is under other. It's titled Other, and it's at the back of the section you have in your general. If you just go to the back where that white tab is, Mike, and go to the page before it. The page before the white tab,
Before the white?
right behind, yeah, there you go.
Okay.
It's titled Other, and you'll see the Remke, and if you look at the detail on the next page of what makes up that number, we will have to pay property tax. That will come back in, the obligation of the leasees. There is potential maintenance cost, and there is certainly snow and ice control, contract to handle that. So these are all accounted for in that line item. But it should be recouped in the revenue side, which we'll have to put in when we redo the certificate at the beginning of the year. And there is, we got a credit, is that right? The property was discounted almost $70,000 that we should have paid, that we will pay for the property. But because of the way one of the tenants pays their obligation for taxes and common area maintenance, it doesn't rectify till the first of the year. So the previous owner is owed that from January 1st to October 11th. But the tenant doesn't pay it until the first of the year. We got it credited on our purchase. We're going to have to pay it in 2020, just so you know. So we got credited. We didn't pay that in the purchase price.
It's like that 117,000, or what was it?
Well, it was like 67,000 and something that
68,000.
that we had to
68,000?
that we realized we're going to have to pay that we didn't pay in the purchase price. So that's just so you know, when that comes up, we are aware of that, and that's just, it was discounted off the price, the closing statement. Okay, so more exciting stuff, the TIF fund. I won't go over everything in the TIF fund. It's more of the same. You have the schedules for different equipment. That's plugging in for 2020. One thing, because the gas tax was raised in the state of Ohio to generate more funds for those collecting it, we have more gas tax to throw at road work, so we lessened the TIF amount for road work, a couple $100,000, programmed out of the, I have some projected programming for what we're going to do at the Remke site, which obviously we don't know exactly what's going to go on there, what the composition of things are, but I have money shown to do engineering work, design work, and potentially some actual work, which I guess would entail demolishing the building if we get to that this year, if that works out. So those are some notable items in that TIF fund. We got $5.233 million this year in the TIF fund. That's up 7.9%, or 7.3% from the prior year. It was up 5.9% from 17 into 18, so the TIF fund has been putting more money in there. If expenses shake out the way they're projected in 2020, the balance in the fund at the end of 2020 would be $1.875 million. So that's in the yellow at the bottom of your TIF sheet. Just, if you look at that bottom, based on what is being programmed, you can see what the balance looks like each year. Now, the green line on the very, very top of that big sheet, it's projecting what your revenue is. Obviously, if the revenue continues to go up, that yellow amount, that yellow highlighted amount on the bottom is going to be more. So that basically gives you an idea of how much excess you have if you want to program more stuff out of the TIF. And then obviously you have some debt obligation going off in future years, so you can see in 2022, you have 600,000 going off for the Station 33 firehouse. And in 2024, you have a few other things going off. So your yellow highlighted amount escalates a little bit just from some obligations
Going away.
going away.
Unless we buy a fire truck.
Yeah, why can't they go away now?
Yeah, exactly.
So Mr. Ryan has given the 10-minute signal for the DVD, just in case you didn't see
So
it.
should we take a restroom break?
Do you have more?
I am done. That's all I
You're
have as far as
We haven't looked at.
unsolicited dialogue.
Well, I kind of wanted to know, like, from the department heads, is there something that's out there that they, it's a big wish list, it's a big want, it's a possible need that you haven't mentioned yet tonight? New building. Chief, we've heard that. Patty. Staff for IT. You mentioned the playground.
Comprehensive plan.
Comprehensive plan. Okay, I'm going to ask my age-old question again. You're getting 3 cars again this year, 3 cruisers, and the money you get from the sale of them goes towards the purchase of those?
Well, right now, I mean, Jeff had a work last year. We put the 99,000 in. Jeff, maybe you could, look at that. We put the 99 in, for the sale of 3 cars. With the balance coming out of TIF. But realistically, it's all TIF. That's right. Transit.
Because the money that comes in goes into the police fund, they have to budget out of their fund what they expect to get in from a revenue side. Otherwise, they're taking money out of the TIF and then putting the revenue into their police fund.
Right.
Right.
So that was the difference last year. It used to be the cars are paid out 100% out of the TIF, and they
And then
keep
the
the
resale
revenue.
went back to the police.
To
fund.
them.
Right. So that's why they have to now account for some amount of that expense, what we project the sale
Resale
will
will
be.
be.
So it's a wash. It's not a cost. It should be a wash for the
So we're-
police fund.
So you're only budgeting in here out of TIF, what we're going to buy 3 cruisers minus what they sell the 3 for.
Correct. And then they account for that amount in their motor vehicle line.
Okay.
Okay. Patty, on staff, could you do a rough estimate for us on what we're now doing, paying part-time contractors to come in and assist you versus, and maybe work with Melanie and find out what the cost of a part-time personnel would be? Okay. And Greg, do you have an estimate? Is there any way to break that into increments? Is that a one-time shot? One time?
That's kind of high end. I've done them for 50, it just depends on what we want out of it.
Okay,
That's a typical range.
okay. Any other questions, Trustee Davis?
Nope.
Trustee Sturts?
No, so we have wish list, IT staff, zoning, comprehensive plan, or, I'm sorry, community development, parks, playground, and fire
It's a truck,
truck.
a large truck,
New building for police.
and new building for the police.
And admin.
Yeah, it's kind of, yeah,
Next Christmas.
good analogy, Doug, Christmas. Fiscal Officer Luby, did you have anything?
I don't. I'm just, glad to see that all the funds that do get tax levies, they are within their projected time, working within their projected time frame. I appreciate the FAB meeting with department heads and going through line items with them. And I know we do have some newer FAB members, so I do appreciate you guys spending some extra time with them. That's all I have.
I too would like to say thank you all for the detail, the analysis, the projection. I know that you do a lot with less, and the entire township appreciates it. So
We know what work goes into these reports, working together.
sure do. I don't have any public comments because there really aren't any public here. Board comments. Trustee Davis, any parting words?
No, I think everything has been said.
Trustee Sturts?
Yeah, no, again,
Okay.
thank you so very much.
All right, then, with no further business to be brought before this board, I move we adjourn. Oh, Mr. Cameron?
You have 4
I
minutes.
just want to make 4 minutes. I just want to make sure, I didn't hear many changes or adjustments to come back for the 18th. I didn't hear
The
of
major
many.
conversation's going to have to be about the truck.
Right, and in fact, only errors and corrections is what I've got on my list of things to adjust, if any. But
And-
otherwise, what they've shown, I didn't hear you saying, like, leave the thing with the fire truck the way it is and leave the park stuff the way it is as far as that. So
I
just
think
want
we'd
to
like
make
to-
sure,
Like
when
to
I bring
see
that back.
Patty's analysis on what she
well,
would need.
I don't know that you'll, I'm just saying for what I bring back in your resolution for the
Okay. Oh, no.
appropriations,
You're good.
it's going to look a lot other than corrections like it does today.
Right.
Okay.
All right, then with no further business to be brought before this board, I move we adjourn.
Second.
Adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
You dropped that audit. You got rid of that.